Hey there, sunshine. Thanks for letting me come into your day. I am so excited to talk to you today about this podcast episode. I stopped looking up the numbers because I realized the number of the episode doesn't really matter. All that matters is the content. So I don't know. This might be, I think this is somewhere around 17, 18, who knows? But welcome. I'm glad you're here. I hope that by the end of this, you feel super inspired and empowered and connected to the world and connected to yourself. So today's podcast title is, does it feel like something's missing in your life? And what's your spirit animal? And I'm going to dive into that in just a second. A couple things, because I'm kind of doing this for fun, just out of curiosity and to see how many people are actually action takers, or you just kind of listen to a lot of things, but you don't actually implement it. So here's the deal. If you screenshot this episode and you share it on Instagram or Facebook, I don't care if you put it in your story or Facebook post, or I don't really care how you do it as long as I see it. If you do it though, I will respond and I will send you free pancakes. Just because I am really curious, and I've been testing this out with some other things, of how many people actually listen and are present to what I'm saying, and then they actually take action to what I say. So yeah, screenshot this, share it either on Instagram or Facebook and tag me, and I will send you no catch or anything like that. I'll just send you some pancakes, some protein pancakes, and there you go. All right. So on that note, speaking of taking action, so I've had some really good calls this week. I mentioned in last week's podcast episode that I was starting a transformation program for people. And I sent out a video in this week's email, which if you did not get a video from me, you're missing out. I'm sorry. I told you to go to abspancakes.com and sign up for the newsletter and you would get videos from me, but that's okay. Anyways, I did get a huge response, and an incredible amount of people were so vulnerable and transparent with me, just telling me about their struggles with their workouts, struggles with their weight loss, but also the common denominator was everyone having issues with mindset and feeling like they're going through it alone, which the irony behind this is, being on the receiving end of this, when I'm getting just dozens of emails of all of us saying the same thing of I'm tired of feeling alone. I'm tired of feeling alone. I'm it's crazy that so many people feel alone, yet all of us are in it together. So in reality, nobody's actually alone. It's just nobody's talking about it and being vulnerable. So I was on all these calls this week, and these are all one-on-one calls where I'm just getting deep with people talking about all right, you sent me this email, you said you're tired of it, tell me what's going on, where's your nutrition, where's your fitness, what's going on with your mindset, how are you doing emotionally? And it's so funny, not funny, but just interesting, because as I'm doing all this, and these people are all starting on Monday, so for the next 8 weeks, I'm kind of just going to take their hand and coach them through how to get over humps in their life right now and really just start making some changes. And the biggest fear people have had is they're I'm not going to have to do this with a group, right? I don't have to show up in a group setting or stand up in front of the class and say anything. And I laugh because I'm no, you're working just with me one-on-one. But it's so interesting because, and this is what I want to talk about too in today's podcast, it's interesting that that's the fear. And people have a fear of public speaking. And I used to when I was in high school, and it's ironic that I'm even doing this now, but everybody wants to feel connected in some sort of camaraderie in what they're going through. Yet in order to do that, I have all these people going through the same process that if I wanted to put everybody in a group, nobody wants to stand up and admit it. And you know why? It's because it's the fear. It's still this thing in our brain that tells us even though I am in a group with 10 other people that are doing this, I'm still alone. And isn't that crazy how our brain works like that? it's like the AA meetings or the people going through a loss or divorce or the career changes, like all these support groups. You are guaranteed in this group that every single person in it is in the exact same place as you, but we don't want to stand up and raise our hand and share our struggles out of fear of either feeling more alone, like nobody's going to get it, or feeling rejected, or putting ourselves out there and not being understood. So with today's topic, does it feel like something is missing in your life? And what is your spirit animal? We're going to kind of address some of these things. And I do have a confession to make. I recorded this whole podcast episode yesterday and with a little different content. And then I deleted it and I am re-recording it today. And that is the first time I have ever done that. When I record these, I don't go back through and edit it or listen to it. And then when I actually publish it, I don't ever listen to it again. I just say it, boom, put it out there to you guys, completely unfiltered. So this is the first time I'm redoing it. And the only reason being is because I felt super not grounded yesterday. Like just very in my head, philosophical, kind of emotional, that I don't feel like I was being super clear on driving my points home. So this is going to be a much better one. All right, so spirit animal, first of all, here's a little story behind this. So if you think I'm crazy, that's fine. So spirit animals aren't necessarily, a lot of people get this confused of thinking like, oh, it is like the one animal that just goes with you for the rest of your life. Yes, no, a lot of times spirit animal thing is more just like omens, like they're different representations of things that you may be going through in your life. And here's the thing. Animals, I actually love and probably connect more to animals than I do with most people. Not all people, but most people. And the reason being is because animals function totally off of instinct and feelings. They don't have like deep-rooted subconscious beliefs and all these things that we have to work through as humans. So animals totally function off of how does this make me feel? How does this person make me feel? Instinctually, what do I need? How do I survive? It's just how they function. So I love animals because they function this way, where humans, we're kind of the opposite. Rarely do humans function off of instinct and feelings. We function more from our brains and logic. And most of this is not because we can't. It's because we have learned to protect ourselves and to not trust feelings and instinct because we've gotten hurt or whatever before. So this is why I love animals, and the way that spirit animals work. All of this is very you got to be open-minded, and you can take it with a grain of salt. If it doesn't, anything in life, if it doesn't resonate, throw it out the window. And if it does, great. It's a tool you now have to put in your toolbox to help you through life. So different animals will show up repeatedly through different parts of our life that we're going through. One of the things, like right now, this is not my spirit animal, but right now it is showing up like crazy for me, and it is 100% like spot on. So in the last 2 days, I have had 4 snakes come across my path. And I'm not talking like I'm looking for these snakes. I'm talking I'm walking in my driveway and 2 are chasing each other and they're massive. And I just kind of stopped and let them do their thing, and I didn't bother them. And then I kept moving. Then there was a baby one at the front door the other day. And so then this morning, this is so weird how this happened too. So there's a screened-in pool that I have, and somehow this one snake keeps getting in there, regardless of how many times I have removed it, put it outside. I have sealed off anywhere that it could be getting in from outside. And my morning ritual is I like making my coffee and my abs protein pancakes, and I like taking my pen and journal out there, and I sit on this little chair by the pool that overlooks the lake. So it's it's my morning meditation. And I go out there this morning, and it's a little damp because it rained last night. And so I had a towel sitting by my chair, and the towel is sitting on a table, and I pick up the towel to put it on the chair, and there is this baby, and I don't mean tiny baby, it's kind of a big baby, snake curled up, cozied on this table. It's the same snake I've been removing. And I didn't see it at first, which is weird. I moved it, and then like I went to walk away to go grab my coffee, and like I kind of saw something out of the corner of my eye, and I stepped back, and this little snake is just curled up right next to my chair, and it's just looking at me, and I can tell this thing is frightened. Like, oh shit, she just saw me. What do I do now? Is she gonna kill me? Is she gonna like try and hurt me? What am I gonna do? And my emotional response to it is I actually wasn't scared. I was just like, huh, how did you get there? Like, I've removed you so many times, and yet you keep showing up somehow, and you happen to be, how did you get on top of this table? And you're just cozied on up, sleeping right there. So at first I was like, all right, maybe I can pick up the table and this thing's not going to freak out, and I can carry it outside. So I'll continue the story. But anytime you have a spirit animal or you have an animal that continues to show up, pay attention to your emotional reaction to it. Because each one has some sort of message to share with you, some sort of meaning behind it. And what your emotional reaction is usually indicates what you're doing in your life. So, snakes, if you know it or not, are all about rebirth and transformation. So they're constantly shedding skin and regrowing, which ironically is what this podcast is all about, rebirth and transformation. I 100% right now am peeling back some of my own layers in my life and shedding some beliefs, some deep-rooted insecurities, a lot of things. I'm shedding all of these things. And then I am regrowing into like a more whole, authentic version of myself. So to put this back into the story, the snake keeps showing up. It doesn't surprise me it's a baby snake either, because it's a baby. It's rebirth. Like it's a symbolism of everything that I'm going through. If I would have seen that and freaked out and my emotional reaction is fear, I'm trying to kill this thing, get it out of my house. Like if that's my reaction, that is exactly the way that I feel about the rebirth that I'm going through in life. However, that was not my reaction. It was more an observation of like, I wonder how this thing got here again. And then I realized I tried to pick up this table and take it outside. And immediately like this snake kind of like did its thing where they're like curled up and they're cozy. But then when they start to feel fear, they kind of like bow up a little bit. And this isn't a poisonous snake, so I wasn't super concerned. But I clearly saw this thing is scared to death. It's a baby. It thinks I'm going to hurt it. It feels fear. I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to just like, maybe I can like put it in this bucket and I can like take it out. So I try all these things and this thing is not having it. Like it's scared to death, probably because it also doesn't know how it got in there. It just showed up. So we're both like, how the hell did you get here? I'm trying to help you. So I'm like, maybe I can get like a long pole and I can get it to go on the pole and I'll take it outside. I'm trying all these things. And at the same time, as crazy as it sounds, I'm trying to talk to this thing. I was like, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm trying to help you. I know you don't want to be in here and I'm trying to get you out of here. So this whole process. And then what ends up happening is this little baby snake jumps off the table. Still doesn't scare me. I'm just like, okay, wow, you are freaked out. So I'm going to back off. Like I'm not trying to scare you. And it curls up inside the bottom of this chair that I sit in every single morning, like a kid that's hiding. And like it's a wicker, so it's got like little cracks through it. And it pokes its little baby's head out of this wicker and is like looking at me. And like you can just tell this thing is scared to death and it is trying to hide and like, please don't hurt me. I'm just here. Okay, so this is what spirit animals are all about. So I'm sitting there and I'm like... Again, like, if you haven't figured this out, like, I'm a super sensitive person. And I'm like, oh my God, this thing is so freaking scared because it probably is just, it thinks I'm a threat. I'm not trying to hurt it. I'm trying to help it. I'm trying to get it back into its natural habitat. And because I think about all these connections we have in life and how animals work and life works and nature is like the most purest form of life, I'm like, you know what? This is probably very symbolic of the part of me that is scared to death about this rebirth process. So I'm going to treat this little baby snake as the exact same way I'm treating this part of myself that's going through this. And I'm just going to give it some space and be like, you know what? When you're ready, I'm ready. I will help you find your way out. So this is what happens. My main spirit animal is a hawk, and this isn't something people always ask, like, how do I know what my spirit animal is? I can't tell you what it is, and there's not some formula to figure it out. You just know. It's just this animal that has always showed up for you at different times in your life that you just know. So every time I've ever gone through very either low points or transitions and I feel like I'm lost, hawks always show up for me like in abundance, almost like good omens of like, hey, don't worry about this. Like, you've got this, you're going to get through this, like always. So that's like my main one. You also have spirit animals that are trying to help you and guide you. You just have to pay attention. And this is how I feel like all of life is. If you'll just pay attention, you are constantly being guided and shown different things to help you along your path. So you can look this stuff up. Say you've got rabbits, bunnies, cardinals. I don't know. I saw a zebra the other day. I'm in Florida and I was not at a zoo. I saw a zebra. I only saw it once though, so I didn't really take that as like some omen. But all of these have different things. So you can look it up, and most of them are pretty congruent when you Google these things online of like, what's the spiritual meaning of a bunny? I'm pretty sure bunnies are all about abundance and good luck and like good fortune. So if they're showing up for you like crazy and maybe you've had a series of bad luck or stuck in a rut, usually it's indicating to you like, hey, like keep your head up. It's going to be okay. And if you don't believe in any of this, like I said, if it doesn't resonate, throw it out. But whatever, it applies for me in life, so I hope it applies for you. So now that you have all of that and you have these things that show up for you constantly, and the same thing with numbers too, like 111, 222, 777, people that see recurring numbers. I have never taken this as, if you look up the meanings, honestly, I think some of them are hearsay because like I've had stuff show up and then I look at the meaning and I'm like, that doesn't resonate at all. Like that makes no sense. So when it comes to numbers, the main thing that I see is like, I just take it as an indication. If I'm seeing repeating patterns, as you're on the right path, like you're in the flow. If I'm not seeing any of that, if I'm not seeing animals and I'm not seeing numbers, it means that one, I'm not paying attention, and two, like I'm totally off track and I need to go meditate and reconnect to myself. So that's kind of how that is. So going back to animals being emotional and instinctual, I think that's a word, intuitive, whatever. And humans being logical and just kind of disconnected from their emotion, that wraps up to, does it feel like something's missing in your life? If it does, more than likely the thing that is missing from your life is you. A lot of times we go through periods where, say you have a very clear bullet point sheet of everything that you want in life and you get all of it and you're like, I'm confused. I thought that this was everything that I wanted, but why does it still kind of feel like something is missing? Well, it's because what we try to do to move forward in life, sometimes we end up leaving behind pieces of ourselves. And I want to talk about why we do this. And this one might be a little bit longer, but that's all right. It's Monday. I mean, what better way to start off your Monday? So we do this because in moments of our lives where we have had extreme emotional pain, we create stories and we shift our personality out of a way to survive and move forward in our lives. So there's different series of pain and based on the level that we can handle emotionally. So like level 1 pain would be something like you didn't get the job that you applied for. That's a level 1 pain. And I'm being very just generic about this because these are just examples so you can apply them to your life. That's something that, yes, it sucks and maybe it gave you a bad day, but it's not so deeply emotional that your brain kind of changes everything because it can't handle it. Level 2 pain. Maybe you started dating somebody. Oh my God, guys, there is a hawk that literally just like landed directly in front of me. See, I'm not making this shit up. Like it's letting me know like, hey, you're on the right path. Keep doing this. All right. Thank you, hawk. I appreciate the signs and you showing up. So anyways, level 2 pain would be where you meet somebody, you really like them, you start dating them. you really feel like there's something here. You start to emotionally open yourself up a little bit. You get really excited. And then maybe a few months in, they tell you they're not feeling it. And you're like, well, crap, that really sucks because I'm really disappointed. And I thought this was it and all that. That's like level 2 where it's painful. It might take you a few weeks or however long to get through it, but it's not like knock you to your knees type pain. So then we have the level 3 pain. Level 3 pain is what can be classified as like a trauma, but the problem is a lot of times when it comes to trauma, people associate that with something big and huge. So like people think trauma is only applicable if you had like something severe happen, like your house burns down or you lost all of your family members all at once, or I don't know, like somebody stole your identity and now you're completely broke. Like that is huge trauma. However, there is trauma that happens all the time, but because we think that it's only valid if it's this huge thing, we don't really pay much attention to it. However, our brain and our heart and emotions do. So let's say you were, again, anytime I give examples, these are not things that I actually know. I am just giving you things that come up hypothetically. Let's say you're 12 years old. You really are trying to make friends and you don't feel any insecurities or have anything wrong with you. You're too young to realize that there could possibly be some sort of flaw in you. You just think that everybody is loved and everything's fine. So you're 12 years old, you're on the playground, you really want to play kickball, and you're lined up and you're super excited, you're ready to go, and for some reason, you're the last person that gets picked. Okay, whether that makes any sense to you or not, apply this to anything. Dating, career, I don't care. You very possibly may have taken that one small incident as a kid when you are so innocent and pure and immediately created the story about yourself of nobody likes me, I'm not good enough, I suck at sports, and I should just be a loner because clearly nobody wants to be my friend. Fast forward 20 something years, you're an adult and you feel disconnected in life and you're like, I don't understand. Like, yeah, I have friends and yeah, I have a relationship, but like, it's kind of like, it's just not quite the level of depth or connection that I want. And I don't get it. Like, I don't understand why I'm not really feeling what I want to feel. And it's because this part of you from 12 years old has curled up like this baby snake that I had this morning and put itself in a closet in the dark with a blanket over its head because it's scared to death to ever come out and attempt real connection because it got rejected at a young age. This might sound so stupid because you're like, okay, that's something from like 20 years ago. Like, I'm not concerned about that. Whether you admit it or not, your brain knows this. Your brain does it. And there are parts as an adult where you shift your personality based on what you have to do to fit in and to survive. So I'm trying to think of like examples without being very personal with anybody. So a lot of times too, like, and one of the things that creates the disconnect for us is you are searching for the thing that is missing because you are trying to move forward with the piece of you that hasn't quite gotten the attention that it needs to get. So if your heart, let's say you have this whole heart and it's like a pie, the shape of a pie. It's got all these different halves, quarters, pieces of it. Say half of it, you left it in your senior year of high school because your biggest crush or maybe your high school sweetheart broke your heart. And ever since then, you've never actually had real connection with anybody. And you keep like driving yourself nuts because you're like, but I want a real relationship and I want real connection with another human being. And I want to feel all of these things. Well, here's the deal. In order to do that, you have to go back in time emotionally and in your mind's eye. You have to go back to that part of yourself that felt devastating heartbreak and figure out what was the story you created behind that. But also, did you ever actually feel the heartbreak? Or did you kind of start to feel the heartbreak and it got really scary and painful, so you shut it down and you molded this part of yourself into something that will never go to that space again? So if you're feeling disconnected and you're not finding what you want, That's probably why. And the concept of this is called self-parenting, where in a moment like this, where it's hard when you're in that in-between stage, when you're in like just those years where you're figuring yourself out, which is where most people create a lot of trauma, between like puberty and then through like your mid-20s, where you haven't been jaded, so you live very openly and you live very wholeheartedly, that you have no reason to not show up fully. And then you start to have these experiences that you're like, nope, learn that lesson. I'm not trying that again. Nope, I remember giving it my all with that situation and I totally got burned. But you have to figure out a way to peel back your own layers and go back to that space, because what should have happened is when you had some sort of emotional experience like that, that's extremely painful, you should have been able to go to a close loved one, go to a friend, go to somebody and be very honest about the experience and allow yourself the opportunity to feel all of it, and then allowing yourself the time and space to then kind of heal back together. And unfortunately, in our society, people understand this with physical pain, and it's just like equating this to a workout or a sport. If you broke your arm, nobody's gonna sit there and be like, look, I know you broke your arm. It doesn't really matter. Get it together and get back in the gym. You need to be performing at the same level, doing the same numbers, and no excuses, man. Like, suck it up and push through. Nobody would do that. People would be like, oh, wow, you broke your arm. Are you able to like take a walk? Like, your legs are good. Can you take a walk? Like, how are you feeling? People have way more understanding of that. But to me, emotional pain is more devastating than physical pain. When it comes to emotional pain, though, on the outside, you look fine. You look totally normal. On the inside, you can barely like function because you get all this crap going on internally. However, if you try and explain that to people, if you're like, actually, like I'm really heartbroken, like I'm really bummed out because I thought this was my big break. I thought this was the job that I really wanted, and I thought I was doing this. You tell it to people and they're like, oh man, yeah, that sucks. Like, it's all right, like, get it together. People don't allow the opportunity for you to feel any kind of pain or to actually deal with whatever's going on. So because of this, we have had to learn as a society and as human beings of like, oh shit, like this isn't acceptable. I got to hurry up and like, let me just tough it out. Like, let me just build it up. And, you know, I guess I'm just not really going to be vulnerable again, because that doesn't really work in society. People don't want that. And unfortunately, if you want to kind of like fill this gap and this feeling of disconnection and aloneness, you have to do it. And it's super scary. It's super scary because there's the feeling of like, what if I go to that place and I don't come out of it? So I've had to deal with that. And it's not that actually, I don't know, because everybody's perception is different. I feel pain to a certain level. So it's kind of like I was raised and in an environment of, number one, you don't quit. You never quit. Even if something you don't like, you don't quit. So what happened to me, and I had to decondition and deprogram this, is I would get in situations where I would try something because I wasn't sure. I didn't know unless I tried. And then I would get in it, I'd find out I hate it, except for because I had this deep-rooted programming in my brain of you don't quit, I would stay in situations longer than I needed to that were making me miserable. But I wouldn't tell anybody about it because, I'm not a quitter, like I'm a hard worker. Okay, well, that's great, except for this is like crushing your soul. I've had to decondition that. On top of that, even in sports, like there's pros and cons to being an athlete, but also being in the fitness industry, because you are conditioned with the mindset to persevere, to push through, which is very important and such an incredible trait to have. However, sometimes if you're like me, where you do that all the time, you actually need the opposite. You actually need somebody who's like, hey, are you okay? Like, shit's kind of hitting the fan right now and your life is falling apart and it doesn't seem like you're feeling any of it, which concerns me. You need that too. Like, you need to be able to have the permission of like, I don't think I can push through this right now. Like, I know I can eventually, but right now, like, I'm pretty crushed. So when you have these things, and we all have them, we all have conditionings, we all have beliefs, whether we pick them up from our family, our friends, or we establish them in ourselves, that we create stories and we create personalities around these deep periods of emotional pain. So you want to feel more connection in your life. You want to figure out what it is that's missing. You have to figure the part of yourself that is missing, that you are not bringing fully into your life. You cannot have true connection, true fulfillment, and deep relationships in your life with only part of yourself. You're showing up, you're playing it safe. That's what it is. Like, you're playing it safe out of fear. You don't want to take a risk, because what happens if you end up repeating some sort of trauma that you had before? What happens if you end up trying for that thing and you get totally crushed? Well, what's going to happen is it's a very real possibility you might get really heartbroken. However, and I was actually, one of my really good friends and I were talking about this recently. I told her, I said, you know what I am so grateful for with our friendship and the people that I keep close in my life is it's not that I haven't been through serious pain. She hasn't been through serious pain. My other friends haven't been through serious pain. It's the choice to keep courageously showing up in spite of that and keeping an open heart, because so many people in the world don't do that. And I think the world needs less of us who are playing it safe and being a shell of a human, and more of us who, in spite of our pain, we choose to live wholeheartedly and openly with faith and trust that eventually we're going to find the people that connect on that level. Eventually we will find the things that connect with us on that place or in that space. But in order to do this, though, it takes so much personal work. It takes so much personal work, willingness to be vulnerable, and to keep trying. Brene Brown has a fantastic talk on Netflix, and I don't remember the actual name of it, but if you just go on Netflix and watch Brene Brown, I've watched it a few times and it makes me cry because every person can relate to it. And she talks about two different concepts of the marbles and then like the kind of friendships you need. And she says, like, if you have one person in your life that when you're going through a hard time, so here's what we all want. However, here's what we usually accept and we will take. So say you're going through a really, really hard time in any area of life, and you express this to your friend or who you think is your friend or your partner, whatever. Most people will say, I'm so sorry to hear that. Like, let me know if you need anything. Here's what's not going to happen. When have you ever been going through a hard time and somebody has told you that and you're like, actually, you know what I need is I need you to come over and I need you to sit with me and let me just totally like pour my heart and soul out to you. You're not going to say that. You're already in a vulnerable place. So when people are like, hey, let me know if you need me. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Clearly I need somebody and I'm not going to reach out because I'm already having a rough time. So she talks about this. She's like, that's the polite thing to do. That's the equivalent of somebody being like, hey, how are you? Good. How are you? You're not actually, you could be terrible and you're still going to say it and that person's not going to pry more deeply. What you want and what you need is when you're going through a really hard time and you're talking to somebody a little bit about like, yeah, I'm having a really rough time and this is what's going on. You want the friend and the people in your life that are like, okay, well, how can we get you through this? How? Okay, do you want me to come over and I'll just sit with you? I can't fix your pain, but if you want me to sit with you in it, I'll sit with you in it for as long as you need to, because that's all you need. You just need somebody who will sit with you in it. You need somebody who won't judge it and who will crawl down in that dark hole with you, and they're your flashlight holder. So you can be like, you know what? I'm totally going to fall apart. It's like the DD. The person who's like, yeah, I get it. You need to go out and get wasted tonight. I am right there with you. I totally understand you're having a hard time. I can't fix what is going on with you, but I can be there to make sure, number one, you make it home safe. And number two, you're not alone. Those are the kind of connections we need. However, in order for you to have that, you have to be willing to put yourself out there and receive it. You can't want that. And then when somebody asks, hey, how's it going? Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm fine. Okay. Because you're not creating the opportunity to get what you want, and you're not creating the opportunity for somebody else to give that to you. You have to, though, understand the amount of courage that you might do this a few times and you might not get the response that you need. That does not mean that what you want doesn't exist and you won't get it. You have to be brave enough to keep trying. So that's that part of that. The other part she talks about too with the marbles is how you have this glass bowl. In relationships, in friendship or romantic relationships, each time we take a chance to be vulnerable with somebody new or just with someone in general, it's kind of like we give them the opportunity to earn this marble. So there's people where you thought you were really close friends or you thought you were really close. You share something very intimate that scares the hell out of you to share. Their response is either going to create more trust for you in that friendship. It's like little by little, you create these memories, you create these little marbles of trust to where over time, you now have this whole bucket of marbles with this person that you're like, no, I know that person's got my back no matter what. I know that there is nothing that I can share with them that would make them walk away or that they wouldn't 100% support me. However, the way you do that is one marble at a time. So maybe it's like this secret that you have that you're not really sure is going to be accepted. And you're like, all right, I am giving you this marble. Here's the opportunity to start filling up that bowl with more marbles of trust. We're going to see how you respond to this. And little by little, you start to bring that part of yourself that you have shoved down for so long because you've tried before to get the love, the acceptance, and the connection that you wanted. You start to slowly heal it and bring it to the forefront with people who earn your trust over time. And this happens in relationships all the time. I told you this was going to be a long one because this is a lot. And based on the emails that I got, I really want to address this stuff. But this happens in relationships all the time. People dive right into a relationship. They just hand over their trust to somebody who has done nothing to prove that they are a trustworthy person. People will show you by their actions. And I 1000% disagree with this. I had a girl one time, I don't remember who this was, but I had a girl one time that was telling me how she had been cheated on in a relationship years ago, and now she has trust issues with people. And she went to counseling for this, and the counselor told her, you give people trust until they give you a reason not to trust them. And I immediately was like, nope, I 100% disagree. Not because of being jaded. That is a very naive way of going about life. Maybe when you're a child, that's fine, but you are now both that child part of yourself and you also are the adult parent part of yourself. So you have to play both the role of the innocent kid while also learning to self-parent of like, you set the bar of what you get. You set the level of expectation and the standard that you hold. You don't go out there and just trust people and share your most vulnerable self just for the sake of doing it. You do it little by little. And over time, when people show up for you, then they earn your trust. And I mean, this is little things. In the very beginning, it's if you trust somebody like, hey, we said we were going to meet at 5. Even me doing this is putting myself out there. I'm going to show up at 5, trusting that you're going to stand by what you said and you're going to be there at 5. So each time you do this, you create little moments of trust with this person. And then you start to go a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper. But the biggest thing is you just got to try. You got to put yourself out there. And you have to be the adult and the child. And each time somebody proves to you that they are somebody that can be trusted and will show up time and time again, you create a safe space and opportunity for real connection of what you're looking for. So going back to this group and these different people that start on Monday that I'm going to be coaching one-on-one, all of them are talking about how they feel alone in their struggle. Okay, well, in order for us to work past that, you are making the first step by 1, trusting me. And I can promise you I will continue to show up for you every single week, every single day, and help you through this. However, you have to do the work and eventually figure out, why is this there? Why do you choose to not show up for yourself? And when the opportunity presents itself for connection, why do you not stand up in front of the class and put yourself out there? What happened? What is the emotional pain that triggered this fear? And how can we work through it and heal it? Because otherwise, if you don't actually connect to that part of yourself that has the pain and has the trauma, then you're kind of just working with things on the surface. It's what I call, so you got fitness, you got workouts, and you have nutrition, and you have mindset. All these components have to happen for you to really change your life. So doing this kind of work would be doing all those three things. A lot of people come into it though, and they're like, all right, I started taking a diet fat burner pill. I started taking all these supplements, but they haven't actually cleaned up their nutrition. That's going to fall flat really fast. That's the equivalent of this emotional part of yourself. You showing up is a very huge part, but only part of it. You showing up internally, going to that space, asking yourself, why do I really want connection, yet I don't seem to be finding it in my life? Number one, am I putting myself out there? And if not, why? What happened? And maybe multiple things have happened, and you may totally be valid and justified in your reason why. You have to, though, heal that part of yourself in order to fully be able to show up, because fear is going to happen no matter what. Fear is going to happen. You're going to get to that place. You're going to experience, this is what I wanted to say. So when these things happen in our lives, we have these moments of pain and trauma, and we shove it away. We don't actually feel it. It's normally at the time in our life when what should have happened is we had that loved one or adult or the parent come in, give us a safe space to heal, feel everything we need to do, and then we move forward through it, just like you would if you were sick or you had a broken bone. That parent comes in, they're like, all right, they're staying home from school, I'm going to take care of them, like they're going to be bed rest. That's what happens. But with emotional pain, we're not really equipped with the tools on how to do that, so we don't. So now that you are the adult and you can be the parent for yourself, I don't care how new age, hippy dippy, therapy type craziness this sounds, if you really want to change the disconnection, you got to do this. So now that you have the skills, you have the maturity, you have the wisdom, and only you know what the true experiences are that you have been through in your life, you have to be brave enough to go to the space where you left part of yourself behind, or you locked part of yourself in a deep, dark closet because it's scared to come out and experience the same pain or trauma, as a very loving, understanding, older, wiser adult version of yourself. So like if you can picture this in your mind's eye from a visualization, you, as a child, are in a closet, scared to death because of a thunderstorm or whatever it is. However, you also are now the adult that can see that. You got to be the one to walk into that dark closet, comfort that part of yourself, be like, hey, look, I get it. Like, yeah, it is really scary. It is super loud. I know that you don't know how to handle this or navigate it. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to crawl in this dark closet with you, and I'm going to talk to you and soothe you and help you through this and show you that there's really nothing to fear and it's okay. And then you pull that part of yourself out with you as the adult. You create that connection and you move forward in your life and you create more deep, genuine connections. But if you don't do that, you're always going to feel like something's missing, and it feels like something's missing because it's you. So if you have an area of your life, this is a lot, man, we're getting deep, but I love it. If you have an area of your life, say, I don't know, let's say that you feel lackluster in your career or in your business, and you're just kind of coasting. You're playing it safe. Maybe you're doing this in your relationship. All right, I'm kind of embarrassed to admit this, but I actually told somebody about this recently. For a very long time, I mean, realistically, it was only like 5 years. It wasn't forever. So my biggest heartbreak happened in my early 20s. I'm talking like the heartbreak that it came out of nowhere. You never saw it happen. And I mean, we've all been heartbroken several times, but my first biggest heartbreak happened in my early 20s. And it was to the point where, I don't know if you've ever had love that like when it's gone, it like knocks the wind out of you. Like you're like crying in the shower. You're crying trying to put on like your clothes. A song comes on the radio and you're crying. Like it's like that kind of heartbreak. So this happened in my early 20s. And when it happened, I did not know. I had never experienced that kind of emotional pain. People talk about like losing love, and I had never experienced that. So it didn't make sense to me until I went through it. So I didn't have a navigation of how long do you grieve? How long is this supposed to last? Like, what's the right way to do this? I didn't have any of that. So I was going through my own process, and part of my own process was I was going out drinking a lot. I was like just hanging out with friends. It's the rebound process you go through of like, you know what? It's fine. I didn't need them anyways. Like, I'm just going to do my thing. So I did all this understanding now looking back that this was part of how I was trying to heal. Well, I didn't quite fully get all the way through the healing process. It had only been, I don't know, maybe we'll say like 6 months maybe. It had only been about 6 months, and it was still taking me a while because I've referenced in other podcasts, like I feel a lot. And when it comes to people, I love people very deeply. So when they leave, it's very hard for me to let go. So it had been 6 months. I didn't know that there was a timeline on grief or when you should move on faster. And what happened is some situation came along and it like really hit me and it triggered an emotional response. And I had like opened myself up to someone I trusted very much. And I was crying. I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. I never thought I would lose this person. I thought we'd be together forever. Like all these things. And the response that person gave me was, oh, you're still dealing with that? And immediately I created the story of, regardless of the fact that I was dealing with it. I still needed time. I immediately shut off all those emotions. And I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm through. I'm done with that. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, I'm over it. You're right. Like, suck it up and move on. And it was like I was 50% healed. And immediately I shut it off. I shut off all those emotions because somebody else implied it was time to move on, even though my heart wasn't really there yet. So because of this, because I did not allow enough time to heal, and I didn't reestablish like my connection with myself for a period of about 4 to 5 years, I dated down. And I know that I am not the only person that has done this. So if you're judging me right now, you probably are doing this too. But I was telling somebody about this recently of like, I dated down because it put me in a safe space that as long as I dated people who weren't totally what I wanted, so like you were close and you had a lot of qualities that I wanted, but I knew that I wasn't going to fall like head over heels in love with you. It filled a little bit of what I wanted, but it also kept me in a safe space because I knew that they would never leave because I was going to be, for them, they were dating up. For me, I was dating down. So they were never going to leave because they were so fulfilled and happy that it put me in a safe space that I couldn't get hurt and I couldn't get devastated and I could leave this person whenever I wanted and feel totally fine because I knew deep down that that wasn't actually what I wanted. That was just my safe choice. So I did this for a while because I was scared. I was hurt. I was vulnerable. I didn't want to repeat this process and feel what I had felt almost totally before. Now, after a couple relationships of this, and they were short-term, they weren't long-term, I realized that I was doing this because I was getting frustrated. I'm like, God, why do I keep dating these guys that they're not bad guys. They're just not really, we're not on the same playing field. They want different things. And I made the connection with myself of like, well, because if you actually were in a relationship with an equal, with somebody that you totally loved, you may actually get really devastated and heartbroken again, and that scares you. So therefore, you take the safe choice. So I have had to do a lot of work on myself, and even if there was pain from 10 years ago, letting myself now heal and move through that so that I can have ultimately the connection that I want, because eventually you will get tired of playing it safe. You will start to ask yourself in your career, in your relationships, in your friendships of like, is this it? Like this, it's not bad, but I just feel like I don't know. Like, I'm just kind of going through the motions. Like, it's not bad, but it's also not like lighting up my soul. And this is kind of weird that this is all there is in life. And the only way you're going to get it is to dig deep and to go through this. And it's scary. And I was talking on the calls with these individuals that are starting on Monday, and I was prefacing it and kind of like warning them. I'm like, look, I'm not somebody that's wired for surface level connection. I hate small talk. I literally don't know how to do it. So when we start these calls, like, I'm going to dive right in and ask you what's going on. Like, what happened to you a year ago that has kind of knocked you off with your happiness of why you feel stuck and alone? Like, what happened? And you're going to have to trust me that I'm not going to judge you. And I'm simply here to help you, to give you a safe space to heal and move forward and transform your life. But you can't do it if you don't meet me there. And I think that that's true in anything in life. So feeling disconnected from things or feeling like things are missing, you got to check within yourself and ask, is there a part of myself that I am missing or that I am leaving behind or that I am not connecting to simply because there's pain there that I haven't felt, or maybe there's trauma there that I haven't felt. And the way you can figure this out is if you take out a pen and paper, or maybe if you just use like a blank document on a computer. It doesn't really matter how you do this. I do suggest, though, don't just do this in your head. You need to actually like get it out of your body and on to paper or on a document, because it kind of like helps remove the energy a little bit. When you do this, though, just be very honest with yourself. And I guarantee you, when you first do this, you're probably going to lie to yourself. You're probably going to lie to yourself, not intentionally, but because it has been an auto response. I was trying to say autopilot and autoresponder at the same time. It's going to be an auto response that you have given people for so many years. So you might start this out of like, all right, let me ask myself, are there areas where I feel disconnected or it feels like something's missing? And then start to type that out. Like, well, in this area, or this is how I feel in another area, and be honest with yourself. And then, is there something that happened somewhere in my life that was extremely painful for me that maybe I haven't been fully honest with how painful it was? You're probably going to lie at the beginning. You're going to be like, no, I mean, I think I dealt with everything. Ask again. Bring up anything, trust your gut instinct, because here's the thing, your soul wants to help you. Life is always trying to help you move forward. However, it is a co-partnership and co-creation. You can't just expect one side. If it brings up like, hey, yeah, remember when you were 6 and you colored that picture and you were so excited about it and you did it for, I don't know, your best friend, and you put all of it into it, and your best friend looked at it and laughed and threw it away, and never again did you do anything thoughtful. That might feel so stupid. By the way, again, hypothetical. I don't know if that really happened. If it did, I'm sorry. That might feel stupid, but that is exactly where you need to go, and then be really honest with yourself about like, actually, that really sucked. Like, that really hurt my feelings, and that really made me not want to do anything thoughtful for anybody because nobody saw the value behind it and just threw it away. Be honest with yourself, and here is how you can tell if there is pain that you have ignored or shoved down or not dealt with, is when something comes up that you're like, maybe this? If there's any kind of emotional charge, it's not been dealt with yet. So an emotional charge can be anything. If you think about something, a memory or a situation, and maybe your body will respond and let you know if that emotional pain is still in your body. And here's how it responds. If you think of it and your eyes start to water, or you start to feel like you could cry thinking about it, or your chest starts to tighten, like you feel constriction because you're trying to restrict that emotion from coming up. Maybe your mouth goes dry. Maybe your throat kind of tightens up. Maybe your spine tingles. The hairs in the back of your head stand up. Maybe you feel angry and tense and rage and all these things. Your body will let you know when you bring it up if you have processed the pain and ran it through your body, and now the entire thing is dealt with and you can bring that part of yourself with you, or if you have been holding this emotional pain in your body for so long. So trust it. Pay attention to it. Be brave enough and courageous enough to connect with that part of yourself. And again, like I said, treat it like a kid that's hiding in the dark because it's scared of something. And you are now the older, wiser adult that can meet it there and be like, look, I know this sucked. And yeah, that person was a total asshole to do this to you. And I want to talk to you about like life, and like you have every right to be hurt and upset and scared. And we're going to move through this though. That doesn't mean that you don't keep trying. Treat it that way. And I don't care how many situations you got to go through to get to that. It could be relationships, career, it could be everything. Whatever it is though, commit to yourself to do the work. And you don't have to share this with anybody. You got to create the relationship and the safe space that you trust yourself. You've got your own back 100%. And because you love and trust yourself so much, you will do what needs to be done for you to be happy, connected, fulfilled, and to have the life that you want. Whew, man, we're getting deep, guys, and I love it. So everybody that's starting this stuff on Monday, don't worry. You're going to be going through this with me. I'm going to help you through this. You definitely aren't going to do it alone. Do this on your own, though. If you are not starting that with me, it's totally fine. You can do this by yourself, and you can create just that whole connection in your own life. More than likely, though, once you get to that place and you start to realize, wow, every decision I have been making has been coming from me trying to avoid this kind of pain, you are going to have to make some changes and really transform your life. And I mean, I've noticed this personally, like I've pursued things that I didn't actually want just because if I actually pursued what I wanted, it puts me in a very vulnerable place. But I've had to do the work to establish trust in myself that like, you know what? People are going to hurt you. That's inevitable. People are going to hurt you because hurting people hurt other people, and people can only give away what they have inside. But that does not mean that you do not continue to live life open-heartedly and with complete passion and drive and trust and faith, and that you are supposed to shut off this part of yourself because the rest of the world does. That's not what anybody needs. So take the time, make that safe space for yourself, be willing to go deep, commit to heal whatever it is that keeps you from feeling fully connected in your life. And once you've done that, take little baby steps in putting yourself out there to create that connection and to create that love. Because here's what happens is when you do that, now that you have that connection with yourself, it's okay. You can put yourself out there and get rejected because you are not going back to that place of pain anymore. You've established trust that like, look, it's all right. Like, see, I told you this might happen, that you might try and take a risk and get hurt, but it's okay because we're moving forward together. Like, we're going through this together. That doesn't mean we stop trying. Like, it's not as scary. You're not that kid that has to hide from trying everything in life. So do that, work on it, and just, give yourself time and space. Don't rush the process and just trust it, because once you go there, your whole life is going to change because you start to see every area that you have acted from pain and fear. All right. This is probably the longest one I did, but it's also probably more emails that I've gotten in the last 2 weeks than any other topic. A couple people sent me messages that were, it's funny because they're like, I feel like when I listen to your podcast, like you are talking directly to me, and like, how does she know this stuff? How did she know this is what I was going through? Well, number one, I'm psychic. Not really. I'm not really psychic, but I do sometimes get really interesting and weird information about other people. And I think I talked about this, like weird dream. I do have psychic dreams and premonitions. I also get more intuitive stuff. So like 90% of the time when somebody's talking, there's this like, this is so weird to admit, but whatever, vulnerability, let's do it. If somebody's talking to me, especially if it's face to face and not behind like a computer screen or like in an email, which is why when people want to work with me, I always make them do video calls with me. I don't do just regular calls because I can pick up on a lot through video and seeing you. Normally when they're doing that, it's like this weird thing goes on inside of me where I'm like, yep, here's where they're struggling. This is their truth. here's what they want to say, but they won't say. It's kind of interesting. But also the point behind that is you feel like I'm talking directly to you because we are all connected, which further drives home the point that you're not alone. We are all connected. We're all going through this life together. We're all trying to better ourselves. We all have struggles and insecurities. And the sooner you're willing to stand up and admit it, the sooner you can have other people that raise their hand and they're like, oh, really? I've got that too. Let's be friends. And you're like, holy crap, I had no idea the path to real connection and everything I want was just me stepping out and reaching out my hand and saying what I needed. All right. Wrapping that up. Thank you for letting me go to all of these places with you. Thank you for making it all the way through this. Like I said, I am very curious of how much of this stuff you actually implement and take action. So if you want some free pancakes, screenshot this, share it on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. And if I see it, I'll get your address and I will send you some pancakes. Also, if you want those emails that I was talking about at the beginning of this, where I kind of send out different messages, and sometimes I'm just talking about like workouts, or sometimes it's just a video where I'm like, hey, here's what people are going through. Let's talk about this. That's also at abspancakes.com. And that's mostly just because that's my CRM backend of where I can keep track and chat with everybody via email. But that's all I got for you today. Give yourself a big warm hug. I'm giving you a virtual hug right now. You're going to make it. You're going to be okay. You're going to get everything you want. This is just part of the growing process and growing pains. But in the end, ultimately, it results in you living a life that is more authentic and more connected to yourself, which you will then have with the people and the world around you. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next episode.